Welcome to Pegwarmers. I'm Kevin, and I'm here to talk about toys. Today, we're doing a live episode, and we've got some people in the house. Crazy Razzie just showed up. Topic suggestion: could the new G.I. Joe X Transformers movie be good? That is a great topic, and we will definitely get to that. My first topic is about Power Rangers moving over to Playmates. Speaking of Hasbro movie brands and toy brands, Hasbro bought Power Rangers not too long ago from Saban and is now licensing it out to Playmates. They had made a very popular toy line with the Lightning Collection, and they did kind of like drown us in Mighty Morphin releases because they did the regular Rangers from Mighty Morphin, like the first season. Then they did the new batch Rangers as pack-ins in like special sets, so you got the alternate heads. They did the Ninjetti outfits. They did like sparkly outfits. They did the remastered ones, which are sort of the end of the Lightning Collection line, but they really did a lot of versions of Mighty Morphin, while they were very slow to put out the other lines. We got Ultra Liger here, Ty Saban's here, Stuart Lewis is here. This is great. So the Lightning Collection, I was so excited. So I have collected a bunch of the Bandai figures over the years, and I was so disappointed that they would change scales every so often. You could never get like all the Rangers in one style. Then we thought we were going to get that with the Legacy Collection. They started it. They still had superheroic proportions, but they were all on the same scale. They did a few teams, and then that ended. Hasbro bought Power Rangers. We went with the Lightning Collection. And again, I got really excited. I have a huge shelf down here of Lightning Collection figures. They did some monsters, which was great because the monsters are kind of my favorite part. And they did a ton of Rangers, but they didn't do every season, and they didn't finish all the teams they started. And that's kind of rough. But Playmates has it now. Playmates is known for doing the Ninja Turtles toy line in the 80s. They also did a pretty good 4Kids toy line of Voltron based on the Netflix series. So I assume that's kind of where what I'm expecting to see. Now, that Voltron line didn't do that well, but its biggest issue was the fact that it didn't get released with the episodes. Like, the show came out and there was no toy product, and then the toy came out slowly, and I think that's a big part of what killed it. But I do think that if they are producing Power Ranger toys based on Mighty Morphin, they don't have to match up with any content. Kids like Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. Some of the collectors will buy it, although I feel like a lot of the adult collectors are just kind of over Mighty Morphin. We have been saturated. There have been so many versions of those Rangers over the 30 years of the brand. And I just, unless they do something really revolutionary, I don't see myself picking up too many of the Playmates figures. But, they might be really cool, and they'd probably be great for my stepsons. You love the Ninja Turtle Power Ranger crossover. That's from Ty. Yes. So there was a crossover comic book where the Turtles morphed into Rangers, and was it Tommy was the Shredder? Like Evil Tommy or something like that? I don't know. Or Shredder became the Green Ranger. There was some sort of crossover in that. And they made sets of figures for the Lightning Collection. I did skip those. I like the concept of crossovers, but I'm not always a huge fan of the execution. Like, the artwork of it is cool, but I usually think the stories are bizarre when they mush things together. Power Rangers and Justice League, or G.I. Joe and Transformers, as has been mentioned in the chat already tonight. Sometimes the power dynamic just doesn't quite work for me. So we might as well talk about it with the Power Ranger movie, or the Transformers G.I. Joe movie. We got another comment here. It really was funny growing up. Because my last name is Saban. Yeah, as a huge part of my childhood. Yeah, for sure. So Ty's last name is Saban, and Saban is the creator and the company, the man and the company that created Power Rangers. So you'd see the Saban logo all the time. So anyway, G.I. Joe and Transformers has been a concept for a long time. There was a short Marvel comic book miniseries. There was a couple different series by IDW, but it does give you a really big power dynamic. Like, why would Megatron ever listen to Cobra Commander? Unless he has some sort of like control device on him. And, you know, the Autobots and the G.I. Joes working together can kind of make sense because the Autobots already do work with humans. But it's also hard to imagine the Joes fighting the Transformers. Like, think about the military teams in the Transformers movies, right? Like, they're there so we have somebody human to connect to. But are they really beating the Decepticons? No, they're like shooting at them and like jumping away from explosions, and then Optimus Prime swoops in and like cuts off Starscream's head or whatever. You know, like the power dynamic there is difficult, and I think it's going to take some good writing to do this movie well. But I really do wish them all the best of luck because I would really like to see a good movie. A really awesome G.I. Joe rebirth would be great, especially if they could tie in with Transformers and then get their own stuff that's like in the same continuity, kind of like the Avengers, right? And we'll have the crossover movies, but then we can have some Transformer stories on their own, some G.I. Joe stories on their own, and keep them together. Or even if the G.I. Joes are always the military guys in the Transformers movies, it would be nice if they could get their own movie some of the time. I haven't watched the early Bay Transformers movies in a while. It's been a while for me, too. The only one I've seen recently is the new one. And, you know, I always liked the early Bay ones. Not like I think they're the most amazing Transformers movies anybody could have ever made, but I think they did a good job of doing something fresh with the brand, and, you know, clearly they made money. Sam Witwicky and his parents get a little too much at times. They definitely need to tone down the humor a little bit. You know, we're all used to the Marvel quippy dialogue kind of humor. I think that's a little bit better than the spazzy kid and his overprotective parents and his chihuahua peeing on somebody or whatever. You know, like, maybe not all the silliness is necessary. There's almost a G.I. Joe feel in the first couple Transformers movies. Yes, I feel like they could have just called a couple of those human characters in the first one, Duke or Flint or whoever, and they could have just done the crossover from the start. And I think that was probably Hasbro's biggest misstep, because if they had done a light G.I. Joe integration into that first Transformers movie, they would already have had a good G.I. Joe franchise started, because they would have just had a starting point. They would have worked from there. They wouldn't have had it done a silly origin. You don't need an origin for G.I. Joe or Cobra. The best thing about Larry Hama's comic and storytelling is that he revealed the background over a long period of time, had things that you had questions about, and revealed little things in flashbacks. Doing a story that shows us who Cobra Commander is and how he became Cobra Commander up front kind of ruins that. Same thing with Snake Eyes. Show us how heroic Snake Eyes is. Show us how awesome he is. Then tell us what happened to him, right? Don't show him being basically a bad guy and then lucking his way through everything and double crossing everyone, and then it just walks on the Joe team. Like, that was one of the problems with that movie, in my opinion. It wasn't the only one. Having a giant snake that won't bite him because he's trustworthy or something like that. That may have also been a problem with that movie. Wasn't SGL Cobra Commander? Yes, Joseph Gordon-Levitt was Cobra Commander. He was willing to be any character they would put him as in that movie. Like, he was just dying to be part of G.I. Joe because he was a huge G.I. Joe fan as a kid. And I love that for him, but it's a shame that he got such a weird role where he's almost completely hidden and concealed throughout that whole movie. He's got the monocle and the rebreather thing and the funny wig, and then when he peels it off, it's all prosthetic, like bald deformedness. And then he gets the kind of dumb helmet at the end. They replace him with a good design in the next movie, but it's just a generic voice, I think. I don't think Joseph Gordon-Levitt did the voice of Cobra Commander in the second movie. All right, so I picked up a Pegwarmer recently. There was only one of it, so it's a little funny. It's not quite like a Pegwarmer in the sense that there were tons of them, but it was on clearance. I do not go to GameStop often, but I was at one. I went to an event near a GameStop, and I got there a little early, so I swung into the GameStop and walked around, and they had this Funko box on clearance. And I don't buy a lot of Funkos anymore, but I also don't see a lot of like ancillary G.I. Joe modern merchandise out there. You saw the F word, the Funko? Yeah. So anyway, I wanted to see what was in here. I actually did peek online. You can just see what's in the box. It's not really a surprise, but I'll show you what I got here. I love the artwork on the box, but I probably won't save the cardboard box because can't save too much cardboard. There's a mini poster. I guess the main thing in the box is Director Destro. They dropped the profit part of his name. We'll get we'll get the ancillary G.I. Joe market with this one, guys. Only Pops, I'm meaning, is Rebel Moon and G.I. Joe related ones that you don't have. So yeah, I basically have G.I. Joe, Master Universe, Power Rangers, and then a few oddball ones. I really slimmed down my Pop collection. So there's Profit Director Destro, or Director Destro, based on his classifieds figure. He's got the sunglasses, he's got the burning money, he's got the cape. So while inspired by the quote-unquote Pimp Daddy Destro from the 97 line, they've sort of reinterpreted that character and moved away from that figure a little bit more with this figure. So he's kind of cool. And he's just weird enough that I felt like I needed to get him. Okay. If I set things down on the main table, it makes the microphone make a lot of noise. I got a Snake Eyes keychain and lanyard. Looks like he's got a little file card in there. A G.I. Joe dog tag. Not the first one of those I've ever had. Generic on the back. There were dog tags for one of the movies I think you could mail away for. And there was like a dog tag keychain kind of thing back in the very early 80s in like 82. Is there anything else in this box? I think there's like a membership card. Official membership card. G.I. Joe. You can sign on to that. Oh, there was a G.I. Joe sticker in there. I dropped it on the floor. You can imagine it was the G.I. Joe logo. And let's check out what the poster is. Ah. The cover to issue 1 of the comic, but done in Pop style. This is actually pretty typical where figures come in those larger boxes that have an image like this in the background. Is there a real Canadian hero? Well, there's international heroes. G.I. Joe came out in lots of countries. I actually have... I hate to move like the monitor because it's going to look and sound terrible, but... You probably can't see it. But this triple T box right there is in English and French because it's the Canadian version. So the artwork on the box has the US flag on it, but it came with stickers with the Canadian flag on it. And when I saw it at a G.I. Joe meetup event, I was like, I have to have it. Like, I was so excited. A guy from Canada came down to Maryland for a G.I. Joe event, and it was like a big swap meet kind of thing at a hotel. And I was like, that's mine. I bought that, and I bought a couple of bilingual file cards off of him just because I thought they were fun. All right, so that was my peg warmer from the episode, the clearance Funko box that came with the Profit Director Destro, an ID card, a sticker, a dog tag, and a keychain. So, you know, I think I paid $13 for it. The pop normally would be $10. So even if the other ancillary stuff, I don't do anything with it. Like I don't imagine I'm hanging this poster up anywhere. I don't feel like I threw away a lot of money. I don't know if I would be happy with the box if I had paid the full $25 or whatever they were asking for. I don't know. It might have been closer to 30 originally. So at clearance price, it was good. God Tank, hello, my friend. Hope all is well. Yes, everything is well. I hope you guys are all having a good week. I'm actually kind of enjoying doing this live. We may have to try and do this again. So, in all honesty, this week has been crazy. Last weekend just got eaten up. Normally, I shoot my episodes almost always, unless I shoot them with Tony. Then it's kind of in between. But I usually shoot them on Sundays, sometime in the morning, sometimes in the evenings, and then try and edit them like Sunday, Monday. And it just didn't happen. We had a bunch of stuff going on, and it just kind of blew up. And I realized like Monday that there just was no way an episode was going to happen based on all the stuff I had to get done. So trying out the live thing. If you guys like this, if it gets, some good feedback, comments, and things like that, maybe we'll try it again. It's been probably a year since I tried doing a live episode. So that's what's going on. How is your toy room? Are you still building it? Yes, I'm still building my toy room. I like how interactive live this is. Yes, I try to be interactive. That's one of the things I like when I do watch live stuff. I don't watch a ton of live YouTube, but when I do, I love that it's got the back and forth. So the toy room, I've sort of run out of space for shelves. Like the perimeter is full of stuff. There's actually like a sofa down here. I think I posted video or photos of the basement when it was empty in some of the older, in like an older episode, like building the toy room or maybe the memorabilia episode. And there's like a built-in sofa. This place has very much like a swinger vibe to it when it was empty. And so there's like this big, long built-in sofa. And I want to rip that out and replace it with like a platform that I can put the flag on and Eternia and set them up. So I'm hoping to do that maybe this summer. And so I have like a mound of totes and things that need to be opened. And I also have kind of a pile of stuff over here on the side of me. The stuff on the side of me is actually like the Kenner RoboCop line that I want to do with Tony sometime. I have Pez dispensers here that I'd like to do an episode on. I have Bucky O'Hare I'd like to do an episode on. And a good portion of the James Bond Jr. collection that I'd like to do an episode on at some point. So this is sort of like stuff that I'm collecting to try to do episodes. And I've just been trying to like put things away and set things up. I actually want to do a video about my wall of carded stuff. I have a bunch of stuff filmed on it and like B-roll as I was setting it up, and I just haven't like put that episode together or really quite finished it. But that there's a big wall on the other side of me that's like packed with carded stuff, and so that will be an episode of setting up the toy room episode this summer probably, but if not sooner, that should come out. Pez always reminds me of Seinfeld. Absolutely. I don't know if I have the Tweety Bird one. I kind of always wanted it, but I can't remember if I have it or not. I have not had the Pez dispensers on display since I moved, and I think they were taken down at some point at my old house, so they weren't even on display when I moved out. So it's been a while since I've looked at my Pez collection, although I've thrown a few in there since then. Kev, your last video with Rainbow Bright has me collecting now. Thanks. Those little subject figures are amazing. Any idea when the rest of the figures will show up? I don't have any inside information about when they're going to come out. I haven't seen too many of the little like PVC ones, although I'm getting a lot of ads for them online, and they do look really cool. And I know that they should be doing more of the fashion dolls at some point. I could probably grab her, but I might knock stuff over. She's actually behind me here. So I just recently backed the Kickstarter, and I'm gonna feel bad if I screw this up. The man's name is Dan Klingensmith, and he makes a book series called The Making of G.I. Joe, or yeah, I meant to pull one off of my bookcase over there, so I had the title right in front of me. But they are small, thin booklets that contain all kinds of concept art on G.I. Joe, and unproduced things and things like that. And he's doing book 14 and 15 of his series. They'll be the final 2 books. He has interviewed a ton of people that worked on the brand, and I love all of that like history of G.I. Joe and the work that these people went into designing the brand and creating the brand. I don't have every single book from the series. I have a lot of them. I have book 1, which I think had a slightly different title. I think that was just called G.I. Joe 334, like 3 3/4. And then eventually he changed it over to the Making of G.I. Joe or whatever the exact title is that I'm blanking on. And so I missed a few. I have like 1 and 2, and then I'm missing like maybe 4, 5, 6 or something like that. And then I have all the rest of them. And I think one of the stretch goals is like a slipcase that they'll all fit in if you have a complete set. So, but if you missed it and you were interested, his website, you can find it if you search for Dan Klingensmith G.I. Joe book. But you can still get the older books, and I need to go back and order the old one sometimes very soon. It's crazy how long G.I. Joe has been around. Doesn't it date back to 50s? It dates back to the early 60s, like 1963, 1964 was when the 12-inch ones came out. Yep. And then it kind of slowly petered out in the 70s, then rebirth in the 80s, petered out in the 90s, came back at the end of the 90s. And it just sort of has been like, it was created and it got really popular, and then it phased out, and then they brought it back, and then it phased out, and they brought it back, and they brought it back, and they brought it back. And I'm hoping that the brand isn't in a like form of diminishing returns. You know, like G.I. Joe vs. Cobra was pretty popular. Renegades, the cartoon show, was great, but it didn't seem to sell that many toys. So like, I'm hoping that somewhere along the line they can find a new form factor for it. You ever think G.I. Joe Renegades will come to G.I. Joe Classified Series? Maybe. I think it would look really odd, though, because I don't think they would do animated style figures in Classifieds. So it would be like the Classified level of detail, but in the costumes. I mean, I might be interested in a Tunnel Rat Classified figure, but in that overall type outfit, or maybe even a Roadblock, because Roadblock is one of the more popular Joes, and they always seem to be looking for ways to do him. I mean, he's one of the guys that's had, some, besides Snake Eyes and Duke, probably some of the most like releases in Classified. So I wouldn't be opposed to that. So anyway, Dan Klingensmith's books, I am looking forward to getting those and reading through them. I read them cover to cover usually the day they arrive. I just have so much fun with them. All right, you guys ready for another new to the collection item? I was at Walmart the other day, and I found something that I was looking for. Not G.I. Joe related. I'm giving you guys a break on that brand for a second here. I found Brainiac's skull ship from Super Powers. Roadblock needs to come with a grill. That would be great. So the skull ship, I had heard this was coming out back at Toy Fair. I talked to Pixel Dan after he filmed his interview at McFarlane Toys. I didn't get into McFarlane Toys. I didn't rate high enough for that, but I was hanging out with Dan afterwards, and he was telling me that they were doing this, and I guess maybe the Blue Beetle ship or something else. There was one other one that he said was in the booth, but he wasn't allowed to photograph. I've been having a lot of fun getting the toys from this line. There's a baggie of tentacles. And the body. Yeah, the X-Jet. Sorry, I try not to talk at the same time I'm like opening things from packages. The X-Jet does look cool. I have not gotten it yet, but I really probably should have. X-Men 97's on my list of things to talk about, and I have been going back and forth on getting some of the toys quite a bit. I don't know if it matters where these go. It doesn't appear to. They are different sizes. Huh, they're numbered. Isn't that interesting? I might not be able to assemble this on camera because the light is in front of me, not behind me, so I can't read the tiny little numbers that are on here very well. Sorry, I'm an old man. I'm blind. Maybe this doesn't have a number. The bottom of the ship has numbers on it. Like, there's little numbers on these white tabs, the connectors, but the legs themselves don't seem to have. Well, that slid on there. Maybe they are universal. Some of these look wider than others, though. You got to just kind of try them out. That doesn't fit there. There we go. We're getting a few of them on there. So it's got little wheels on the bottom. And then as it rolls, the tentacles move. It's just sort of an open cockpit, which is a little bit funny. And I assume we're getting Brainiac. I think there is a Brainiac that's coming out. Not the chromed version of him. I don't think that has the skull face, but a different version. I've been trying to collect the Super Powers line. I really have been having a hard time finding the figures, though. The wave with John Stewart, Green Lantern, just clogged the pegs around me. And so unless I go someplace kind of far away, I never run into any of these figures. But there are several waves, or at least one wave, maybe two waves, that have come out that I just don't have any figures from yet. Anyway, I think I'm going to have to putz with this later to get all the legs on it. Little squid skull ship. Whoops. All right. McFarlane's website lists it as the Skull Skip. Whoops. Yeah, okay, that's a typo for sure. Skull ship, nice. I just picked up the X-Jet. Oh, yeah. Roblox needs a grill. All right, just making sure I didn't miss anybody's comments. What is next? Oh, I meant to mention this not too long ago in a video. I talked about the Super 7 rumor, which apparently isn't true, or Super 7 saying isn't true. And I mentioned that the only person I talked to at Super 7 or have talked to recently was Rudy from the customer service department. He did hook me up with a new seat for my turtle van that does actually have a belt with the stubs on the end, the nubs, so it can clip. So I have to figure out how to unhook the seat from the like swing out door so I can put this one back on. I wasn't sure if I was ever going to get it, but I did have it for a real recent episode, and I meant to talk about it, and it just didn't happen. I think the episode where I talked about all the con halls, I was going to mention this, and it just didn't happen. So I did want to share that, like, hey, they did take care of me. I've actually never had a problem with Super 7's customer service when it was truly their mistake. I've never tried to get anything from like something that broke, but they sent me the wrong thing one time, and they sent me this that was defective, and they've made both those things right. Charge Super 7 for the labor. Oh, nice. You have to take it apart to fix it. Yeah, I don't know how hard it's going to be to take the other seat off. You definitely can't switch the seatbelt, though, without taking it off, because it's like it's just a nub that you just could never pull out, which I kind of thought was the case. When I looked at it before, I was like, I don't think there's a way of, like, swapping it. So it's the whole seat's gotta go. So one of my Patreon supporters, Joshua, oops, I bumped the mic there. One of my Patreon supporters, Joshua, asked me to talk about third-party toys like Ramen Toys. I don't know if you guys have seen their Not Quite Mask line. They did the Thunderhawk, you know, the red car from Mask, and they're doing some more stuff. And you know, they don't actually have the license to make masks. They're not Hasbro. They're not affiliated with any part of Kenner Toys, right? They just don't have the rights to do it. And so they're being careful with the name. So they're not infringing on copyright, but by design, they're definitely infringing on copyright. And they're just kind of hoping that they're small enough that Hasbro's not going to go after them. This is a very boutique thing. You guys may have heard of Stan Solo. He makes vintage Kenner style Star Wars figures of characters they never did. I think they call him the next 17 or something like that. These guys make small batches. They charge very high prices, and they're just kind of working in the gray area or the completely legal area of copyright, but are hoping that they're small enough that these bigger companies aren't going to want to waste resources on them. I mean, I think it's cool if you're into the Ramen Toy stuff. I think I've owned one third-party toy that I know of. I mean, I've had a few like straight up bootlegs, but as far as like third-party where the people are trying to be sort of reputable, and I bought a third-party version of Omega Supreme one time because it just looked so cool and it was so huge, and it came in 2 different boxes, like it was sold in 2 different parts. But guys, I have a surprise for you. I'm not good at Transformers. I'm not really a Transformers guy. I like the characters and the like cartoon more than the actual like playing with the toys. So I never took it out of the box, even though I had planned to do a video for it under the old SEO toy review days. And it sat in my house for a while. And then I sold it for what I paid for it to a friend of mine that really wanted it, who had missed out on this third-party release. So yeah, I don't have any of the Ramen Toys stuff. There was one they just did, the white car from Mask that has one of the female drivers. I was slightly tempted to get that. It was just out of scale with the vintage stuff. It's not kind of their bigger style stuff they've been doing. But yeah, I just don't have a ton of third-party stuff. But there are some companies out there that are doing really good stuff. And I think if the brand that you love is getting no love, like Mask, I don't blame anybody for doing it, for wanting to get that stuff. There's just so much to collect and so many lines I already love that I'm not really chasing down these lines, because I worry with like professional lines about them not completing series, like, you know, not getting all of my favorite classified characters or not getting all the characters I want from a Super 7 Ultimates line. And so I'm even more worried about it with something like that, where they're going to make 1 or 2 things and then the line will get canceled and I'll be like, they never did such and such. So if you're just going to grab like the hero vehicle, like the Thunderhawk, I guess that makes sense. But if you're like really a diehard Mask person, you want to get a bunch of the vehicles, like they might not ever get to the Rhino. They could get a cease and desist at some point, you know? Or it might just not be profitable enough for them to do a lot of the stuff, which, you know, we're seeing with Super 7 and the Ultimate stuff, where certain waves are just getting canceled because they're not selling enough. All right. So that one was for Joshua. Anybody have any questions, new topics? I still have a few things here. I got some other stuff to show off, but I figured I'll open it up. God Tank says, I really like Super 7 figures, but the ankles aren't that great. Ankle joints seem to be a problem on a lot of collector figures when you get the ankle rockers going on. Like the Mattel Masters of the Universe, not Ultimates, not Origins, Classics. The Classics figures, they tended to sometimes have loose ankles, and yeah, Super 7 has loose ankles on some stuff. Familiar with BMC Toys? Bring back classic Army Men toys. I'm not real familiar with BMC, but they're bringing back classic Army Men. I didn't know Army Men ever went away. Or do you mean like classic Army Men, but like with articulation and stuff? Like the baggy Army Men, I feel like you can still get at the grocery store or the dollar store. Maybe not. I could be wrong. Is that what you mean, Krasy? Or do you mean like more of the like 12-inch posable fighting men, like an original G.I. Joe? What's my biggest action figure? I have a couple of the big figs from who was this? Not Jax. Was it Jax Pacific that did these? I think so. This guy's like 3 feet tall, so he's probably my biggest. I have a pretty big Stormtrooper, but he's not as big as this. I still have a pretty big Unicron, not the HasLab one, but Transformers Armada one, and a Sentinel from the 3 3/4 inch Transformers line. Those guys are all pretty big figures. And I have the big jumbo Ninja Turtles from back in the day. All right, Krassy's sending me a message here. BMC, check on the shop, visit the site. Oh, yeah, okay. So, like, classic. Sorry, I'm like, it's washing out on the screen there. Their site's so white. But, like, classic plastic army men kind of stuff. Yeah, that's cool. Timmy, Timmee, has always done a lot of that military kind of stuff. I have their, like, gray rock that everybody has little caves and stuff. Pop. Sorry I'm late. Love the show. iTube, welcome. I love them. I ordered from them a bunch. All right, that's from Krasy. He's ordering a bunch of these army men. I have a giant, like, pretzel tub full of those little, like, army men and cowboys and Indians and dragon riders of sticks. All those, like, figurine model, like, miniature type guys. They actually have them at my work. Like, I've had a bunch of them since I was a kid. Some of them are, like, cereal premiums from the, like, 60s. They were my uncle's little baseball players that came from Kellogg's in this giant tub. And I use them at school when I talk to the kids about mold lines. In one of my classes, we make little, I guess we make knockoffs. You know, I let them bring in something, some sort of object, or I provide an object, and we make a silicone mold of it and try casting them a few times. You might have seen, I posted a few pictures earlier this year on X, like a Power of the Force 2 R2-D2 that we cast, and a little tiny Ken Masters from Street Fighter figure. And that was that little unit, just kind of showing the kids how molding and casting works on a very basic level. And so I show them those figures and have them try to, like, check out where the mold lines are hidden, especially on a character that has 4 legs, like a dinosaur. You'll actually see, like, a line that runs, like, across the legs in a weird way that's different than a lot of army men who are very flat. So that way they can just be made out of 2 halves. If they get too complicated in a design, they need more than like 2 halves of the mold. They need, like, a 3-part mold, or it has to have, like, a glue joint. That's a little bit of product design going on there. When you're trying to make really cheap figures, they need to be kind of flat designs. And that's why a lot of those army guys are sort of like the profile of a character. Not so many of them, like, running towards you or doing anything dynamic. Like, nobody has their weapon across them, but also out. It's always like standing like this, or like up and down on their shoulder, or they're in profile where the weapon's kind of pointed away from them, sort of in this straight line. No, Krasy, it's great. That's what we want. We want people to ask some questions, create those tangents. That's the fun part of having a live episode. So last weekend I went to the Delaware show, or that's what all my friends call it. It's actually the April Fool's toy show, but it shifted to the end of April this year. I don't think that it was ever this late in April before. I'll show my haul off in a future video. That was going to be the video for this week, was about the Delaware toy show. But like I said, I got back and I was like, I'm not going to have time to, like, look at this footage and come up with my talking points and film all the B-roll of the items that I picked up. So you guys will definitely get to check that stuff out later. But my friend Dave Croft, who I talked about at the NJCC show, he was going to be there. So I got to hang out with him for a little bit, do a little hunting with him. It's hard to hunt with people, though. Like, you kind of go with them a little bit, but then usually I end up spreading out because I hate when I feel like I'm picking at the same bin as them. So, like, the first thing Dave and I did, we went to a guy that is always there selling G.I. Joe parts. And Dave picked up one bin, I picked up the other one, and we each pulled some stuff out, and then we traded bins. But, like, I don't know. It's tricky. Some people, I think it's easier to do that with. Like, my buddy Nick and I used to go to toy shows together all the time, and we were just really good at working together and kind of, like, helping each other out. Like, hey, do you need this kind of stuff? And Dave's not super competitive or anything. But it just was, it's a little bit trickier. So we walked around together for a little bit, and then we kind of went our own ways and would bump back into each other again. But I got to talk to him and another guy named Dave Don Johnson, but not the voice of Falcon. And, we're just swapping some collecting stories and stuff like that. So it was fun. And then Michael Bro from the Bro Show. You guys know him. He was a sort of a regular on the early days of Pegwarmers. Mike and his wife Jen were at the show, so I got to go out to lunch with them. So that was a lot of fun. That's my favorite thing about going to toy shows. Doing a little bit of toy shopping, but then also getting to hang out with my toy collecting friends. Amy, Will, and Ben. I don't know, I blanked there. Some of the other people that I've often mentioned that I love talking to at toy shows, they were there, vending and things like that. So I got to talk to Ben for a little while, hear some stories about stuff he bought. Ed Rents, who's another one of my favorite toy vendors, was just there to shop. His daughter was in a band event later in the day, so he couldn't be a vendor at the show. But that was pretty good. So that's on YouTube. The April Fool's show wasn't on April Fool's. Nice. No, it used to always be the first weekend in April, and that's why it was called the April Fool's show. But my friends and I have always referred to it as the Delaware show because it's in Delaware. And so a lot of people, it just seems like everybody that I know that goes there just calls it the Delaware show. And it's good. It's in like a... It's like a Shriners, or not a Shriners, a Masonic temple or Shriners temple, something like that. Like in their like banquet hall. But it's a decent show, and since it's out of the area, it's not all the same vendors that I see in like PA, like Philly, Cherry Hill, New Jersey. You know, that little circle that a lot of the shows I go to are in. Some of the same people are there, but it's also a lot more like Delaware vendors, which is great. Megatron, somebody mentioned this. Have you guys seen the transforming Megatron? It talks and it's like animated. Back at Toy Fair, I got to see the Optimus Prime. I believe it's the same line. And the Megatron stands up and says like, you know, some of the classic lines, you know, fall. And it's just really neat. I saw a video with Frank Welker who kind of like introduced it. I assume the lines came straight from the movie, but it could have been revoiced or an impersonator. I'm not really sure. He didn't really say in the video. He just was like, check this out. And Megatron was transforming and talking and doing the whole thing. Are any of you guys into that stuff? I find those toys to be incredibly impressive, but also they feel like a very expensive parlor trick. Like down in my basement here, I don't turn the lights on things. I don't do any of that kind of stuff. You know, like if a toy lights up, I don't really turn that on unless I'm like showing it off to somebody. So I feel like that Megatron would sit and do nothing most of the time. I'm getting a battery warning. Oh my goodness. I should have charged my thing some more. I've seen the Megatron everywhere. I don't like the expensive toys like that. This is from That's on YouTube. Feels like it does one set of things, and I'll break it if I play with it in a regular way. Yeah, I get it. It's very gimmicky. It's very cool, but it's very gimmicky. Crazy Razzie, have you considered doing an episode on controversial toys? Because your Transformers mention reminds me of one that got banned for being named. Probably can't say it here. That would be a good one. Some of these episodes, I feel like I need a research department for. Like, we did the episode about actor likeness, and I don't know if we were totally correct on a lot of that stuff, but I had some help. I had some help from some of the Patreon people, like compiling information. It would be great to do more of that kind of stuff, but sometimes I honestly give myself a very small amount of time to get the episode filmed. So if it's something I really want to do that needs a lot of research, it's usually like I'm gonna shoot this down the road, and I'll start like doing a little bit of research here and there when I can sneak it in and start compiling stuff for later. But yeah, controversial toys or banned toys or anything like that would be a great episode at some point. Thank you for the stream before battery dies. Yeah, thank you. I don't know how much time I have left. Oh, I got 30 minutes. So it's just on like the power save. So we're good. We're good. This won't die on us. So the next thing I have here, I just got the G.I. Joe, what is it? The SMS, Techno Viper, and HMS, Heat Seek Missile System. Have you guys gotten these in? Anybody ordered this? This is to go with the classified HasLab Hiss. I might not pull it out completely. There's a box of accessories. see if we can get it to where you can see some of it. There is the Techno Viper. I did a review of the regular Techno Viper, but here he is in like red and gray. And there is the body and the big missiles. So you can see this is pretty large size. I had the MMS, the G.I. Joe version, as a kid. And I did not have the piece that clipped the missiles to it. So I never quite understood how it worked, but I played with the missiles a lot and played with the little towable battle station thing. I'm pretty excited that they did it here, and I'm going to have to put it together and check it out sometime. Maybe I can feature it in another episode where it's all put together. But it's pretty impressively big. Like, the body is as long as my hand from fingertip to palm. So it's pretty big. X-Men 97, I had on my list here. Somebody mentioned they just got the X-Jet. So there's like two lines for that. There's a line of little figures that are great for kids, and the X-Jet's part of that line. There's also some Marvel Legends figures. I would love the Marvel Legends figures personally, but I don't see them. I don't hit the stores fast enough to get the key characters usually. They tend to just be sold out. So like a Wolverine out from a wave I'll never find at the store. I could pre-order them, I guess. But I have a lot of the X-Men, 90s X-Men characters in some form already from the Marvel Legends, like whatever release they've had. The ones from this line are probably the ultimate version that I would really like to have, but it seems a little funny to rebuy some of those characters, Wolverine, Jubilee, things like that. If I saw them at the store, they'd probably be an impulse buy. I'm already seeing X-Men 97 shirts. I'm not surprised that, they're going to merchandise the heck out of this because it's fantastic. It really is good. I love the show. I'm watching it with my stepsons. I guess there's a new episode out today or coming out tonight, something like that. It's Wednesday. Yeah, I guess there's a new episode out already. The show's great. The show is really, really well done. I love everything they're doing with it. I got a Sentinel toy back around Christmas time at Ross on clearance. I don't think it's part of the same toy line as the X-Men 97 figures. I think it's part of that like Marvel 5 POA figure line that was popular or not popular right before X-Men 97. I got one of those for my stepson and some of the X-Men 97 figures for him, or maybe Santa did. I don't know. Somebody got him some of those. But I got a Sentinel, and it's a really cool figure. I can't resist those cool robots. I have the big Sentinel that came from the Marvel Universe figures. I have the little bit smaller one that came from Toy Biz. Now I got this even smaller one from the 5 POA line. I guess the last thing I have sitting over here, and feel free if you got comments, questions, or whatever, we can stretch this out a little longer, but it looks like I did a pretty good job of trying to get an hour's worth of content out. Oops, before I jump to that, I bought another McFarlane toy. I got the Corn Berserker here. He's known as a World Eater. This is a Warhammer 40,000 figure. The artwork on the back is better than the glare off the front of the package, but I love that McFarlane's doing these Warhammer figures. I don't own many of them. They're all based mostly on modern Warhammer, and I am like a fanboy for the early 90s stuff when I played as a kid. And so they don't really make figures of the Space Marines the way I like them. They make the new Intercessor, Primaris, all the copyrightable names they made up, so they don't have to call them Space Marines anymore. And so the Corn Berserker, when this came out, I've been doing during COVID, basically, I got back into painting Warhammer. I've since kind of dropped off on it, but I do want to get back to doing more with it. But I decided to start painting some Chaos stuff. As a kid, I picked Space Marines, and without really knowing a lot of the lore of Warhammer. And then a friend ended up playing Chaos, and I was sort of jealous of it the whole time because it's just so cool and so weird and so funky. And so I decided, when I got back into it, I'm gonna paint some Warhammer Chaos stuff. And so because that's sort of like what's on my table, I decided to get this Corn Berserker figure. Since COVID, I've kind of been into well, orcs, trying to finish orcs, because that was kind of the line I was collecting when I stopped painting the first time. But when I got back in, I dipped my toes into Gene Stealer, Cult, and Chaos. So I did get the McFarlane Gene Stealer figure also. I think I did a short about it when I was experimenting with YouTube Shorts. Just find a Warhammer faction you like and read about them. Yes, I mean, the lore is great. I'm curious to get into Warhammer, but I have no idea where to start. It's tricky if you don't know what faction you want to play, but you can buy a few miniatures and just start painting. The tricky thing is it's hard to decide what colors you need to buy until you know what models you're going to paint and what kind of paint scheme you want to paint them in. They do sell some painting sets that come with, like some generic colors and like 1 or 2 figures. But I often find they don't come with enough colors or with the right colors really to paint those figures well. But it does give you, your first 10 paints or whatever to get started. So that's an option. When I was a kid, there was a paint set that came with a 40K figure and a fantasy figure. I'm sure this sounds terrible. Oh, look at that giant chain axe. That's fantastic. There's his power pack. I love the Chaos packs with the sort of like antler pieces for the vents. There he is. Now let me grab his weapon here. Oh, it's not a bolt pistol. Whoop. Dropped it. This is not an ideal setup for picking up things I drop. My table's a little rickety here. So here's my Marine. He's got his giant antler pieces. Not every World Eater character has them in exactly this shape, but they do tend to have the sort of rabbit ears. They all tend to have like an angry looking face mask. He's got the World Eater logo on his shoulder there. He's got the Khorne logo over here. Khorne is one of the Chaos gods. He's the blood god. And so this, I believe, is a plasma pistol because it's got the glowing coil there. Plasma weapons are pretty good for destroying your enemy, but the bolt pistol is sort of the classic Marine and Chaos Marine weapon. All right, got that in his hand. That looks good. All right, we've got the backpack. That plugs in there. And the chain axe. He does come with some alternative hands. My battery is running low. It's telling me again. Reminding me. Gonna give me a estimate here. 6%. Well, I don't know if it's gonna last the half hour that I had said earlier. Anyway, guys, this has been fun. I do appreciate you guys coming out and checking out the live episode. There he is. Can't wait to put him over on my paint table for some inspiration. I know some people have bought, like, ooh, that's heavy. Makes his wrist flop. They've made some, like, blank ones that you can paint in this scale. It's a different art style to paint in the larger scale than the miniatures, and I would worry about the paint chipping a lot from the joints and stuff. I actually would be interested in knowing how well they work out, or if the people that paint these large scale figures kind of just leave them in one pose so as not to scratch the paint too much. All right, guys. Thanks so much for coming out. Consider hitting that like button, sharing this video with a toy collecting friend. This episode will show up in like the live tab, so that may throw people off a little bit. I'm going to share out the link again later on. I just wanted to say thank you, Kevin, for all you do, brother. Thank you so much, God Tank. I love making the content for you guys, and I really appreciate those of you that watch it and comment and, come out for the live streams. If you want to support the channel further, you can consider joining us on Patreon. I need to put out a bonus video on there for April because it's May 1st. I'm running behind there. So maybe I'll try and shoot something for both months. Great stream. Thanks for hanging on the peg with us, as you would say. Yes, absolutely. Hey, Kurt, you made it. All right, guys. Thanks for hanging on the peg with me. I'll see you in the future.